Thank you. Not that Christmas levity isn't appreciated. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Wareham School Committee. It is approximately 7 p.m. on December 21st, and we will begin with public participation. Seeing none, we will move on to good news. Dr. Rabinovich.
Already, huh? You're asking for good news. I really don't have any. I mean, everything is going pretty smoothly, and I don't want to jinx it, so.
And it's rain and not snow.
That is correct.
Ken, any good news?
Well, it's not good news, but maybe it is. I just want to, for those who didn't know, on behalf of the school committee, extend our condolences to Jeff Sweat and the family for the loss of his mom. I know that feeling. It's a big hole in your heart, and my thoughts and prayers are with the Sweat family. So I guess it's good news because she's probably in a better place than we are right now. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ken. I just want to say on behalf of my mother and my father, who I lost 4 years ago, that I think it's a credit to the whole community that my mother more than once said it was one of the best 10 years of her life, actually in my mother's case 14 years of her life, that she spent in this community. And I'm grateful for that, grateful for the fact that I had the good luck and to move her from New Jersey to Onset, and grateful for the warm wishes and condolences that have been expressed to me. So thank you. Rhonda.
I just wanted to wish everyone happy holidays. This is our last school committee, I think, definitely before the holidays, but also the new year, correct?
Correct.
So we'll all be meeting together again in 2012, but I just wish everyone a healthy and happy holiday season, and kids are about to get out, so please, please, please take good care of them.
Amen. Anything else? We don't have Jessica for good news, so we'll move on to the minutes of our meeting of December 7th. Any additions, corrections, augmentations? Good evening, Dr. Sylvia. How are you, sir?
Happy holidays.
Same to you.
I'll find it.
I do want to point out, while people are considering the minutes of December 7th, just prior to December 7th, we had a workshop related to student growth percentiles within the district. It was posted as a meeting. In the end, there was not a quorum, so we simply have notes to that meeting for ourselves, but we will not be voting on the minutes because technically it was not a meeting of the school committee.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
On the minutes, just, I don't know how important it is, just a grammatical correction. Under fall athletic report and request for grade 8, the third says regarding Mr. Font. At least it's electronically. I don't know if it's on the hard copy.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know how relevant
should be
that
S,
is.
S apostrophe instead of apostrophe.
Okay.
S. Good catch.
With that correction, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the minutes as reported on December 7th.
Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It passes 4-0-0. I do want to make a note that we have one of the more positively aggressive athletic directors I think we've ever had, and thanks to his persistence, the girls' tennis team, I don't want to admit that there might be a slight bias here, but the girls' tennis team has been added to the group of 3 other areas, meaning boys tennis, boys and girls track, so that they will be eligible for 8th grade participation. And I greatly appreciate Mr. Loranger's efforts on behalf of the athletic of Wareham, and especially girls tennis. Okay, Dr. Rabinovich.
Okay, I'd like to report on yesterday's full-day budget meeting with the FinCom. We had 4 members of the Finance Committee, including the chairman of the Finance Committee there. We held it in the middle school library. It was started at approximately 8:30 in the morning and went until approximately 3:30 in the afternoon. And in your, I've given you electronically, but also today, because I had extra ones, hard copy of the 2 PowerPoints that were given. The shorter of the 2, with the 22 slides, was my presentation, and the 72 slides has the presentation by all of the principals and directors and so forth in it. So I've given it to you because I'm hoping that if you look through it and if you had some questions or concerns, if you either drop by and talk to me or email me or call me before the January 11th meeting when I do the presentation to the school board, I might be able to add some things and add clarifications. So the bottom line, so to speak, and in your package there is a letter that I sent to Mr. Andrews by December 15th, which is by charter, that the net school spending number that we are looking for is $27,195,370, and we are looking for $1,585,277 for non-net school spending, for a total of $28,780,647. And that is approximately 7.6% above what we had last year. At the end of the budget presentation, I made a few comments. One of them was that this is the budget that was given to me by all of the directors and principals, that the school board has not had an opportunity to view it and approve it. I also showed the charts that we showed last year comparing the achievement gap with the spending gap, and it is my feeling that unless we close the spending gap, we're not going to be able to close the achievement gap. And between the fiscal 11 and fiscal 12 school year, there were 7.5 teaching positions that were lost in our budget. There were a total of 8 people who were unemployed at the end of the budget cycle that were employed the year before, contrary to what some comments were, that the budget had everybody taken care of and that nobody would be laid off. 8 school department employees were laid off. So that is my report at this time, and I'd be happy to, anybody that wants to give me a call or email me with some of the specifics.
I just want to add a couple of things. One is that I think it's critically important that the public have as much information as possible, certainly prior to the January 18th, thank you, public hearing. But there will also be a school committee meeting for a full presentation by the superintendent the week before on the 11th, and then the final vote on the 25th by the school committee. So I am asking the superintendent to post all of the information that was made available to the finance committee and that will be televised, to make it available on the website so that people can thoroughly understand the request and the dollars associated with those requests. I also want to publicly thank the FinCom and the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee for being represented at yesterday's meeting, and to express the fact that I'm feeling a little lonely at these budget meetings, and if anybody on the school committee can be present in addition to myself, I would be most appreciative, although I understand how busy our schedules can get. And I have been informed that by my able Vice Chair, Rhonda, that the television, you wrote down Education Channel. It's not Channel 9 and the FiOS channel, whatever that is.
Right, so there's the Comcast channels. The educational channel is on 97, and the government channel is on 95. I'm not sure about the other ones.
Okay, so on December 27th, from 1 to 7, which I realize is an extraordinary amount of time to devote to this, to our viewing audience, the educational channel will, as well as the December 30th, will have the complete package, and then the government channel on January 1st. There's got to be a better football game to watch on January 1st than the budget presentation. So I strongly suggest you work on the 27th and 30th for scheduling your viewing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It is also an opportunity for folks to tape them while watching something else. They have 3 chances to tape the meeting where they are able to fast forward. I'm not going to name any names here, but through parts that they might not care to listen to hear some of the pieces that they are very, very interested in. It is a way that you can break it up, and I encourage everyone. I apologize, Mr. Chair, that I wasn't there yesterday, because I feel that meeting and hearing the presentations from each one of the principals, each one of the buildings, and each one of the administrators or executive staff gave me so much information last year. It's an important meeting to view to really understand the needs of our district, the needs of our teachers, and also the needs of our kids. And it gives you, I know that I hear a lot that, I hear many times that I don't have enough information about the budget. This is available to you, and you have an opportunity to tape it or to see it on one of the televised nights, or get it from a friend. I hope one day that we could actually upload these to the website so people can download them at any time. But since we don't have that option now, again, I just encourage everyone to please do your best to really take a look at this information so you are able to make informed decisions once we get to town meeting. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. I also want to say that notwithstanding the length of yesterday's meeting, there was some excellent discussion with members of the Finance Committee, Capital Planning Committee, and school management and myself. So I think it was actually a very productive day. I do want to say that one of the questions that was asked of us was why we didn't react to the town administrator's draft preliminary budget and the number he used for the school district. I want to say that I share our superintendent's feelings on that, and that is that it is, by definition, a preliminary draft budget. There is essentially no information on revenue, and I am sympathetic to the fact that the town administrator had to prepare a budget by December 15th by charter with so little information. So I am certainly hopeful that the numbers reflected in the draft budget will significantly change, and I will certainly reserve my thoughts and comments until such time. With that, I will move back, because I neglected to go to the school committee reports, and ask if any of the members of the school committee have any reports on their subcommittees, or excuse me, their advisory committees. Rhonda?
So the committee, one of the groups that I head is the Community Relations Subcommittee, and you'll be hearing a presentation shortly from our guests that are here tonight around one idea of how to gain more input from, or volunteerism from parents, getting the name of the school out there and everything that we're doing. So you're going to hear one way that we go about that. So that's kind of the update from the Community Relations. The Policy Review Committee, Subcommittee, met, but unfortunately we didn't have a quorum, and so we we are going to have, we didn't have a chance to talk about the concussion policy, but it is on the school committee's discussion tonight because it is something that we need before the first of the year. I do have some comments from the committee members that maybe we can talk about during that discussion, but Mr. Chair, we're set to meet again Tuesday, second week in January, where we'll be a little bit backed up, but we're going to do our best to try to get through as many of the policies as possible.
Okay, thank you. Cliff?
Thank you.
Ken?
Well, unfortunately, my budget review committee met yesterday at the all-day budget, and as I discussed before, Mr. Chair, with my schedule of work, it was impossible to get out because at NSTAR, we got to try to keep the lights on so you can have those budget meetings.
Keep the lights on. That's one of the better excuses I've ever heard.
Tell that to the San Francisco
Well,
people.
Anna keeps showing me the bill, so. So I apologize for not being able to attend the meeting with you.
Thank you, Ken. Two things. One is I have been reminded by our chief reminder, that is Michelle, that the National School Board Association, for the first time in at least a long time, is having their meeting in Boston, and we get a break on any registrations that occur before December 29th, I believe. Is that correct, Michelle?
Massachusetts is before January 31st,
Or we get a break until...
because we're Massachusetts. Otherwise,
okay.
otherwise it would be December 29th.
Okay, thank you. So we've got a month to think about it, but for those of us who have never been to these one of these national presentations, I think it might be very interesting. So if you can arrange your schedule, the meeting itself, I believe, is like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it tries to be as convenient as possible. So if you could get to Michelle to indicate your ability to attend before the end of January, that would be very helpful in terms of reducing the registration costs by about $100 per person. And lastly, I wanted to let you know that we have been invited to a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen regarding transportation. I have discussed this with the chairman of the Board of Selectmen and a few days ago, and we came to an agreement that it would actually be a more productive meeting if 4 boards were represented in this meeting. And by that I mean the school committee, the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and the Capital Planning. I have unofficially spoken to FinCom and Capital Planning, and they have indicated a willingness, a desire to participate. And as I said, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen also agreed. We have been nevertheless invited to a joint meeting rather than this group of 4. My own feelings, as I said, for productivity-related reasons, is we should go to 2 members of each of these 4 committees, plus the town administrator and the superintendent. I have proposed to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen that it take place on January 7th or January 14th. I have subsequently learned that the 7th would present a problem for the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee. So I'm asking for a motion that we invite those 3 other committees to a Saturday morning meeting to discuss transportation, school bus transportation in Wareham, to be hosted by the school committee at a place to be determined. I am hopeful that out of this meeting will come a consensus as to how to proceed. I just want to note, however, that the more we talk about this issue, the older our fleet gets. And we have had 2 engine failures just in the last week, Dr. Winovich?
Couple of weeks,
In
yes.
the last couple of weeks. The replacement of those engines would be approximately $8,000 apiece. That would be putting good money after bad, I think, as the expression goes. So I am hopeful that we can move this process along as expeditiously as possible. So with that, I will ask for consideration of a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And we can certainly discuss. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Yes, sir.
What would be the focus of this meeting? I mean, with all due respect, if the board wants to have a meeting on this issue, we should have a meeting on this issue. But I'm, for the death of me, I don't understand what relevant information could be presented that hasn't already been presented 100 times in 100 different ways. It just baffles me that this continues to be an issue. It just absolutely baffles me, because everybody agrees we need buses. People on other boards ran on children's safety platform, and we still don't have buses. And we're going to have another meeting. Well, you know, it's nice to play kumbaya and play nice with all the kids, but you know what? If I don't have a clear purpose as to why we're having this meeting, what is the purpose of it, other than rehash the same old rehash, I just don't see the point, with all due respect.
I actually share some of your thoughts. Nevertheless, there does seem to be a lot of misinformation and mixed messages on this subject, and I think, especially since I want this meeting to be public, I would like the press to be present, and I would actually ask Dr. Ravinovich that the meeting open with a presentation by our manager of all the relevant information, so that once and for all, perhaps, we can get the specifics associated with transportation, both dollars as well as other aspects of the transportation department, out on the table for everybody to hear and for everybody to question. So I understand your thoughts and feelings, Cliff, and as I said, I share them. But the fact is, the Board of Selectmen have invited us to a meeting. I appreciate the initiative that they've taken in doing so. I am altering the invitation to be more inclusive, meaning to include the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee, and I am hopeful that with this invitation from us and the inclusion of the two other committees, that we can proceed. Will it be constructive? Will it prove to develop a consensus on this issue? I just remain hopeful. We have a motion, we have a second, we have some discussion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400. Thank you. With that said, I am very appreciative of our guests, and I welcome the members of the Falmouth VIPs to join my colleague at the table, and we look forward to your presentation.
Chair, we might just need a moment or two just to get the presentation up.
So by that motion, does that mean we're having a January 14th meeting?
Saturday morning, assuming,
And we're going to have to say where?
yes, we'll post it when we get
We
other.
want to do it here? How many people do you think we need to have a residence?
Technically, we're talking about 10 participants plus a number of people who show up.
Thank you for giving us this time today. I'm pleased to welcome three members, the director and two of the board members from Falmouth VIPs. VIPs are volunteers in public schools, so Falmouth VIPs. The reason, it was probably about a month ago that I first found out about Falmouth VIPs. I'm sure a lot of people have maybe heard about it, but this was the first time that I did. And I found out about it through a group called South Coast Serves, which is a group, it's led by UMass Dartmouth and our local United Way, as well as other nonprofits who basically come together to figure out a way that they can encourage citizens to volunteer at nonprofit organizations to start solving some of the issues through volunteerism. As you might have known, over the last several years, there has been a decline in volunteerism. People are busy, jobs, snowbirds are, traveling, who knows, but there is a decline in volunteerism. And so this group is really concentrated on going throughout the South Coast and encouraging volunteerism. They basically said, you're on the school committee, have you heard of Falmouth VIPs? They're doing exactly this, but even a model that we want to follow in Falmouth, and they've been doing it for over 30 years. I'm going to have Tracy talk more about this, but the reason why I wanted to bring them here is who you're going to hear from a little bit later, our parent, Rebecca Jayes. We both went and spoke to them, and what we heard loud and clear that this was more just about getting a volunteer coordinator and having them go and recruit volunteers for the schools. It was a way to supplement or to add on resources to an existing budget. It's not about replacing. It is about encouraging volunteers to help with enrichment programs, to help with public relations, take some of the burden off of our teachers that around copy, you name it. But more importantly, it was a way to look at programs for our kids to not only help them engage in their community, but also to have mentors come in and help some of our most at-risk kids go all the way through graduation. And Tracy's going to talk more about that. So, especially now that we just heard the budget gap that we have between the town and us, and I know that we still have a little bit of time, but I encourage you to have an open mind about this program. What you're going to see is probably not exactly the resources that we would need to do something here, but just the concept of what this program is about. And really have an open mind about seeing if this is something that we might want to tackle going into this year. Again, as a way to help with some of the things that we talk about here and get presented here about some amazing things that we want to bring into our schools, but we just don't have the resources. This is one way to do that. So with that, I want to turn this over to Tracy Crago, who's the director of Falmouth VIPs, and she's brought with her 2 board members. We have Heidi Murata, yeah, great, who's a board member of Falmouth VIPs, but she's also a former school committee member, and also Rebecca Moffett, who is also a board member of Falmouth VIPs and a current member of the school committee. They're here to present, and then I encourage everyone to ask questions too. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this good or yeah? Okay. Good. Hi everybody. Thanks for having us. Rhonda did a great job summarizing, and she was definitely listening when she came to talk to us in Falmouth. That was very good. We're almost to 30 years. We celebrate our 30th anniversary in Falmouth next year, so we're really excited about that. But we've been at it for 29, so I guess that gives us enough experience to come and share our story with you folks. I'll start with our mission statement, which is, you can read it yourself, but basically it's really to support, not just encourage and support our volunteers, but to provide them with the tools by training them, to support not only the students, but really the faculty and the administration in the public school system. And also, the other big piece of what we do in Falmouth is to facilitate partnerships, and we do that with relationships between the community, the schools, the businesses, and individuals who can help the program out. So a little bit of background. I'll be as brief as we can because I know you probably will have questions at the end. But VIPS was initiated in 1982. A few folks from Falmouth went up to a Department of Education conference where the goal was to really get the communities more involved in public education. And they came back very excited. And those 8 folks really got things going at Falmouth High School. Today, each school year, our volunteers log an average of 40,000 hours a year. I say log because that's what they say they've volunteered, but we know we probably miss a lot of hours, especially from sports parents and band folks and things like that. And there's also a lot of people who just don't think they need to write down their hours for whatever reason. That number also includes hours logged by students, and we start counting volunteer hours by students in 7th grade. We know that they really start counting at the high school level when it comes time for colleges and job and internship applications, but we'll start counting them in 7th. And the hours we count for students are pretty much anything they don't get paid to do, as opposed to our adult volunteers who have to be contributing to the public schools. Last year, student volunteer hours accounted for about 23% of our total. That's a number that's on the rise, and that's something we're really excited about in Falmouth. We don't yet have a community service requirement for graduation, but we're working on that. So I think that number will continue to grow. All right, how is VIPS, and that's what we call ourselves, how is VIPS organized? We have 2 staff members. I'm the director, and I have a secretary. We are both full-time employees of Falmouth Public Schools. I also have a board of advisors. So we are a 501c3 organization. That happened about 8 years into the formation of VIPS. So my board members, 2 of whom are sitting with me today, are responsible for raising about 60% of our budget, and then Falmouth Public Schools covers 40%. We also have a very sort of key group of folks in VIPS we call them building coordinators, for lack of a better term. Those are folks that are doing most of their volunteering in our schools. So we have 7 public schools in Falmouth, so 4 elementary schools, a grade 5-6 school, a 7-8 school, and then the high school. So we have building coordinators in each school, and they really serve as our liaisons between, staff members and parents and kids in each school and our office, which is located physically at the high school. They really sort of, because they're so much a part of that particular school community, they're like on the ground. They can really help us quickly determine a need for volunteers, even if it's very last minute, and sort of be that friendly face to remind people to log their hours. They help us count hours, and they make sure people have paperwork, get introduced to the school, that kind of thing. So those are key people. And then we also have, for some of our larger programs, what we call program leaders. So, for example, we have a school-based mentoring program for at-risk youth. That started in 1994. It's really taken off. It's a big program. I'll talk a little bit more about it later. But we have a dedicated program leader that I actually pay an hourly salary for overseeing that program. And that's just because that program's gotten so big, it's almost its own thing. So I would obviously oversee that, but then we have point people for our bigger programs. And that's just been great because, volunteers can come and they go, but these folks are, someone we can really rely on, and they're responsible for that program. A little bit of structure for how our board is set up. We're a pretty low-key board in terms of our bylaws are very, very, very basic. If you Googled bylaws for nonprofit boards, you'd probably find ours, and that's it. They're really just focusing on memberships, terms, and some of the responsibilities of the board members. Our bylaws state that we can have as few as 15 board members minimum and a maximum of 21. And within that number, we have 2 members that are representing the school district. So, for example, Rebecca's our school committee representative. We also have Nancy Durfee, who is an assistant principal at one of our elementary schools. So 2 sort of higher level, I guess you'd call them, folks from the district. And we also have 2 Falmouth High School students on our board. And we're actually thinking about, I didn't even tell you about this yet, the executive committee is talking about adding some junior high kids as well, just because they can stay with us for longer and help with that continuity. So what do we ask of our board members? Fundraising obviously is huge, but really helping us sort of plan strategically for the future. We have 3 fundraisers that we do each year, sort of event-based fundraisers. So we have subcommittees that revolve around those. Those aren't just board members, but we have community members on those as well. And then we have sort of those specialty subcommittees like you have, policy and nominating, public relations and outreach, that's what these guys help me with, and then fundraising and strategic planning. So just quickly about the volunteers, just because in any school district there's going to be the same kinds of responsibilities. I'll talk in a little bit about some of the special programs we have. Some of our volunteers we literally see once a year. They do one thing a year, whether it's judge the high school English class debates. They sign up for that every year. They come in the spring and do that. Sometimes chaperoning with a field trip, especially with working parents. They kind of pick and choose what they can contribute to, so that would be something that working families can do. Science fair projects are a big thing, especially with access to Woods Hole and all the scientific labs. We have a lot of volunteers that help us with that. And then we have people who, maybe their interest is music, so they help out with the music programs at some level. Then we have volunteers who do something are involved with weekly programs. So that might be helping in one particular classroom on a weekly basis. It could be the projects that are listed up on the screen here. These are sort of more formal projects that we have that we would provide training for, and we ask for pretty much a weekly commitment. So I can answer questions about those if you'd like. And then we have sort of the one-time thing, and these are also where we can get into working with business folks. We do, at the high school, we do an annual career day. We just had it right before Thanksgiving. That's for every Falmouth High School junior, and we actually send them out into the community. And that's just been a really great thing. This year we had 97% of the junior class participated in that event, and they went out to, I think 43 businesses and talked to people in about 88 different career fields. We sent one bus to Woods Hole, we sent one bus out to the base, and then they were all over town. So that was really neat. That's a good one. And a lot of what happens from Career Day is employers we fill out an evaluation form, and they'll agree to take students for internships, job shadow days, actually jobs. And that's also spun off into a career fair that we now do for the junior high. So those same people come in, and instead of doing a more advanced presentation, they basically have a table, and they talk about that career field as just a first introduction. We have a lot of folks that like to share their expertise, whether it's math, engineering, cosmetology. Once in a while, when there's a school play or the band uniforms need some repairs, we have a little mailing list that we do for people who sew. Believe it or not, that's still a big thing, and we get that done very quickly. Even filing in the health office, things like that. Whatever the request is, pretty much we filled it. In fact, the stranger they are, we usually fill it fastest. All right, how do we place our volunteers? So we have a few steps that we run through. The first thing we ask is that volunteers fill out our registration form. We have a couple of versions of this. This is the old-fashioned two-part form. We keep one, the school keeps the other. These happen to go home in every single packet that gets sent home with the kids on the very first day of school. That forms packet for parents that your hand is about to fall off for filling out. So we have those. There's also the Corey form, obviously, for checking volunteers. And then we also have what we call a driver liability form, which is for any time someone is going to be driving students around. And we have a special policy for, how far people can go in private cars versus buses, just like you probably do. So anyway, the big thing is those forms go home in the packets. People are used to them. They fill them out. It's kind of like a routine thing. They're also available on our website. People can print them out. And, of course, they're always available in the schools. The second step is that our building coordinators, those folks that I mentioned that are kind of school-based, they will help quickly sort of identify needs, and teachers do this too. Back to school night, meet the teacher night. The teachers are great at having sign-up sheets for different programs. But pretty much all the information that is in here, we can load into our database. So we ask questions like, do you have an area of interest you're interested in? We plug those into our database. That helps us search it later if we need a specific request. And then we'll work with volunteers to sort of place them according to, day of the week they might be available, or frequency, or just something that they might be interested in bringing into a school. And then the big thing, step 4, is kind of that, I think, what makes us, what's gotten us to be 29 years old, which is the follow-up, the supporting volunteers, the training. If an issue comes up, they know that they can call us or talk to their building coordinator, and we'll be there to actually work with them to resolve that issue. Sometimes it's just miscommunication. People are busy. And so we'll work with them to resolve any issues, good or bad, actually. And then the big thing is, thanking people. It doesn't seem that that difficult of a concept to grasp, but we do a lot of that. We are constantly thanking people in different ways, whether it's an email or a phone call, or we'll have an annual recognition dinner that we do in May. We pretty much fill up the Coonamessett Inn, and it's a great night. It's a really nice night where people can share different stories, and we give out awards and this and that. We also do a similar student recognition event as well. But the other, I guess, big piece of that is this whole collaboration coordination piece. There's no gray area about who a principal would call if there's an issue or a request, or they want to just try something new. We have some really fun principals that are young and fun, and they'll call and say, what do you think if we, and we'll call it a pilot. That's our big thing. Well, we call everything a pilot. Let's just try it. It's a pilot. And a lot of times those things either, they work or they don't, or you tweak them. And that's how a lot of our really neat programs have actually gotten started, kind of just a brainstorm. School and community connections is another big piece of VIPS and a big part of my job, which is great. And so the logical step is to work through, say, a Chamber of Commerce, which we're a member of. There's a special rate for nonprofits. That really gets us in the publications, in different events, and it's also is a great way to sort of leverage out through the Chamber, working with different local businesses. The Chamber is very involved with us for planning Career Day, for example. We've met a lot of great folks who are also just trying to start up in the community, and networking. It's huge. We were talking about that on the way here. People have gotten jobs by volunteering. They've hired people to do work for them through volunteering. So lots of partnering with different groups, and not just businesses. We work a lot with civic organizations in town. Rotary Club is a big partner of VIPS, but also like the Falmouth Human Services Agency for our mentoring program. They will come in and give presentations for our mentors on different issues, teen suicide, depression, substance abuse, and they'll help work with our mentors to give them tools and a little bit of education about things to look for, how to talk to a teen or a young person about those kinds of issues. Yeah, it is great. And they do that in Coast Guard. Yeah, Coast Guard is a big one. I have a picture of them in here coming up. And the other way we like to work with businesses and local groups is to say, if you would like to sponsor a vet, great. But if you can if you can allow your employees and encourage your employees to come and volunteer during the day when schools are open, that would be great. So building relationships with large employers is another big one. And of course, since we're a 501c3, any donations they make are tax deductible. Another way we celebrate contributions, we have a program that we call the Business Partners in Education Program. And that's sort of a formal relationship we work out. There's actually a little contract that we write up that, for example, I'll show you the Coast Guard because their picture is there. They really wanted to, they actually have a Partners in Education program of their own in the Coast Guard. So it just so happened they were the same name. And we sat down with the Coast Guard folks in Woods Hole and identified, they have a lot of folks available to come in and work in the schools. Education is a big priority for them. And they decided they wanted to pick one school. So they picked the 5th and 6th grade school, and they're there all the time. They do things like cleanup days, field days. We have an anti-bullying program in Falmouth called No Guff. They're going to be playing a big part of that program in January. They come in and talk to the kids about, name calling and things like that. But they're just a great presence. They always come in these uniforms, and the kids are getting really comfortable having them around, and it's just been a really neat partnership. So that's one example of a Business Partners in Education program. We have lots of them. I can talk about that more if you'd like. How do we celebrate individual contributions? We, again, have the annual recognition dinner. That photo is those are our volunteers of the year a couple years ago for each school. They get nominated by the school community, other volunteers, and folks nominate them. It's not just about number of hours. It's really about quality of contribution and just the way they are in a school. And we have these special plates made by a Woods Hole potter, just for us. Those are just for our awards, and they get those with their name on them in the school that they work in. So that's just one way we like to celebrate our volunteers. Getting the word out, like here, is another part of what we do. It's funny, we'll meet people and say, oh, God, you guys are in the paper all the time. I don't think we are. I don't think we're nearly enough. But spreading the word about different programs, different little success stories. It could be one volunteer working with one student. If you've got a story to tell, it's really important to tell it because people read the local papers. Clearly they do. And it's great. It's a great way to, make connections with folks. We have a newsletter. We used to print it 3 times a year. We've switched over to having an e-newsletter, finally. So that's another way we get our word out to volunteers and our funders. We also, now that we are stepping into this e-world, we do updates too, which it's been great for us because, requests for volunteers are very time sensitive for the most part, so it's been great, a great addition to email, a way to get the word out. We have a website, always writing news releases and putting articles in the paper, speaking engagements, going out to different civic groups, etc. And then we do recruiting events as well. We'll have, say, a coffee hour, and we'll, talk about our different programs and try to get folks interested that way. All right, probably the most interesting part of the presentation for you guys, I guess, would be, so how do we fund this thing we call Falmouth VIPS? I mentioned earlier we share our budget between the Falmouth Public Schools at about 40% and then the VIPS Board of Advisors. So we do that a couple different ways. We do it through events and fundraising, which I will be completely frank and say they are a tough way to make a living because everyone is doing fundraisers, from your PTOs to your local food pantries to everybody is doing fundraisers. We are going to be celebrating our 27th golf tournament this spring. Back in the day, 27 years ago, we were probably one of the only ones. Now, there are 6 between May and the end of June in Falmouth. So we're all hitting the same people up for raffle items. We're trying to get the same people to golf. Everybody wants to donate and contribute, but they're just a really tough way to make a living. 2 of our fundraisers happen to be outdoor events, so that's another thing that can be really stressful. But anyway, we do them. And I won't go into any detail unless you want to talk specifically about those fundraisers. That's the amount of money we target to net from those fundraisers. And then I actually really enjoy writing grants. So that's sort of been my thing when I came on. I started this job in December of '06. So right away we started writing some grants. And, that FY11 number is we'd like to be at $30,000 a year in grants. And when I say grants, I'm not talking about NSF grants or Department of Ed grants. I'm talking about local grants. And I'll tell you why that's an important distinction. If I were to write a federal grant, and I used to do that in my old job, I would need 3 more people to keep up with the reporting requirements of those grants. I would not be able to spend the money wisely because I would be writing reports about what I was going to do with their money. So we stick with the local grants. United Way, banks, private donations, charitable foundations, those are the grants that I write. I guess they're a little easier to get. The amounts are small. We're talking $1,500 to $15,000 is the typical size. So you're doing a lot of work for it. But it's just, paperwork-wise, it's a lot easier to keep up with those. So far this year, it says 5,000. We're actually at just over 10. We just found out that we got another one, so that's always exciting. By category, see how this comes out. Yeah, it didn't come out great in the printouts. I'm sorry about that. We tried to be fun with our budget, and it didn't look too pretty. But this is pretty much our expenditures by category. So no surprise, people cost money. Under half of it is for salary and benefits. And that's the breakdown of the rest. It's hard to see those colors. I'll read them to you. So let's see, 21% is the money that we put into fundraising and events. Let's see, 16% is our programming. So training, program support, training materials, that kind of thing for all the different programs that we do in the schools. Recognizing volunteers. We also give out scholarships to 2 Falmouth High School students every year who are sort of exemplary community service contributors. And I see that we'll probably be having to give out more because we're trying to grow that, so that's a good thing. And then, the other typical categories, sort of communication and outreach and supplies. So that's, in a nutshell, our cost, the money that we have to raise every year. That isn't the Falmouth Public Schools contribution that goes to some of our salaries. So I just made a slide. I was talking to Rhonda about this, and I was like, if we could just leave you with a few thoughts and tips, and I want Rebecca and Heidi to chime in as well. If you took nothing else away, what are some tips that we've sort of learned over the years in Falmouth? And I think the first one is, and I don't say this to be flip about spending money, because it does cost money to hire someone, but I think it's absolutely essential that you have a person who's dedicated to overseeing the volunteer program. And the reason is because volunteers are just that. They're volunteers. They're awesome. They're wonderful. I love them all. But something comes up, they get a job, they have to take care of a sick parent, they're not there. You really need a dedicated person, and my recommendation would be that it be an employee of Wareham Public Schools. I think it works very well in Falmouth. I actually report to two different entities. I report to the superintendent, but I also report to my board of advisors. I like that kind of checks and balances because they have two completely different perspectives. So it doesn't make me crazy. It's actually a really good thing. And Mark, our superintendent, is fabulous. So. The other thing, for the first full year that VIPS was formed, they planned and planned and planned and had meetings and went around and got input. That is key. You have to put together a planning team of people that don't have just fancy titles, people who are actually going to roll up their sleeves and work really hard and be willing to go out and talk to all the different facets of the community, the business leaders, parent-teacher organizations, or PTAs, I think they are here, staff members. If you don't have the buy-in from the public school staff people, you're going nowhere because they won't request volunteers. So you have to have that buy-in. And that was something that actually happened in Falmouth. There was a lot of resistance to it at first. The teachers were uncomfortable. They were like, they didn't want people looking over their shoulder. And, you know, obviously they quickly learned that that wasn't what the volunteers wanted either. Start small. 8 volunteers in Falmouth High School. That's how the program started. You know, today we're over 1,000 active volunteers every year at 40,000 hours, but it was 8 people. Transparency. Share the plan. Get feedback. Share your successes. Tell your story to everybody. And then the other big piece for us is identifying key community partners. Some partners will come and go, you know, businesses or health agencies or service agencies, but get a few partners. You probably already have them that you work closely with, whether it's your chamber, your Rotary, maybe it's the Elks Club. Just find a couple people who share the vision of what volunteers can do in your school system and how they can help. Those are my main points, and that's my contact information. And you know, Rhonda can vouch for this. I am absolutely happy to talk to you on the phone, by email, sit down. Happy to do it. I mean, I think we have a really great thing going in Falmouth. I think we've all gotten a little complacent in Falmouth, so I'm so excited to go talk to somebody else about it. You know, I think people, it's just a way of life. Kids go through Falmouth Public Schools and they think nothing of seeing adults in our school system that aren't related to them, but maybe they're mentors, or maybe that's the art lady, or maybe it's the computer guy, and they're just always in the school. It's a very, it's just been a very positive thing. So, hope that wasn't too much, but.
No, I'd love to say just a couple of things because I'm a school committee member and why I got involved in VIPS. One of the key things that a school committee member deals with is your budget. I mean, that's like really one of your core things. And when you embark on having a volunteer in public school program, what you're doing is you're engaging your entire town in your school system. So in other words, when you start talking about having a Feast of Falmouth where we have businesses and restaurants actually participate in our fundraiser with us, they're meeting the kids, they're meeting the parents, and they're understanding more about your schools. And those businesses might not necessarily have children in your schools, but they understand what is happening with your school system, and they're much more likely to support your budget when you're trying to get your funding. It's a way for you to advertise. Basically, we all have to advertise in this world. Like, why are we so great? Why do we need money for our kids? Why do we need... What you're doing with the volunteer in public schools is you're telling about how great you are and what kind of quality education that you have. And I think that the types of volunteers that you end up having that come in, we have a lot of retirees that come in. They don't have kids in the school systems, but they're seeing what's happening in your wonderful schools. And they're saying, you know what, I'm going to vote for the budget, or I'm going to try to support them when they go before their town meeting. People that are unemployed, they have the time on their hands, and you need to tap into those resources because you know, 40,000 hours is a lot of hours. 1,000 people is a lot of people that are actually supplementing your education that you're giving to your children. Talents. A teacher is a wonderful resource, but when you have people that like maybe are in the scientific community and they're coming in and they're talking about their job, or they're like volunteering in a classroom and they're explaining some type of science to these kids, you're tapping into a resource that's actually raising the level of your education of your students. So my natural progression to come off of the school committee was to become involved in VIPS because I believed in it so much to support the program. Part of the other facet is that one of the things that Tracy talked about a little bit was the high school students. When you look at your high school population, we realize that high school students get out of school earlier and they're not necessarily going to their sport activities. The elementary schools are still open. They can transition directly from their high school to the elementary school and spend time during their day volunteering with the kids. What a great opportunity for older kids to mentor younger kids. They're coming into the schools and they're meeting the younger kids and they're actually showing them like, hey, you know, you're going to end up in high school and be like me someday. And you're actually creating a really nice partnership between older students and younger students. So there's so many facets to the benefits to the program that I just think that if you did try to start it, it would be a wonderful addition to your school system.
I think what I would probably say to you is the first time I was introduced to VIPS, I was incredibly impressed with it. I'm a teacher of more than 40 years, and I never worked at a place that had the program such as Falmouth had. And I could not believe the amount of people that would come and would volunteer and do the things that we just think in public schools, this is what we do as being an employee of a public school. But I think the biggest thing that I noticed this evening as Tracy was speaking to you, this is a very important part of the Falmouth Public Schools. VIPS is very important to us. So as you hear her go through each one of those things that have happened and how that built up, it could be overwhelming. And I think the other part is to think how innocent it started with 8 people who thought there was something that possibly they could do for the public schools. And I think that is the thing that I would encourage first. Rather than look at a program that has been almost 30 years in the works and is very successful, that it is how it started and to think how everything in Falmouth with their commitment. And I think as Tracy gave you each thing to think about in starting it is to really start with small steps and have that solid commitment. And then as you watch that, just like a spider web into your community, it's one of your best things that you have in public schools. And to tell you how impressed, because now you know where I'm going with this, to tell you how impressed I was with VIPS and was on the board and whatever, we had our Senator Kerry give us acknowledgement on the floor of the Senate to talk about the VIPS in Falmouth, because I just could not stop talking about it. And that's as high as I could possibly go until we got to the president. So when I talk about it here this evening, it is a very impressive public school activity, but it's how you start with it. And you have a great resource right here to ask all of your questions.
One last part of the presentation, if the board would allow me, is that I do have parents here today and they would just like to say a few words from the parents' perspective of the importance of a program like this. So, Becky, do you want to come down and just so they need it? Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys stay where you are.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank the 3 of you for coming tonight and sharing your story with everybody. It's a very impressive one, and hopefully we can learn a lot from what you've done and accomplished in Falmouth. I just wanted to add from a parent's perspective, I have 2 children here at Minot in Wareham, and I really think that there's a need for a program that's an organized system and it manages the parent volunteers. We really have a large pool of volunteers already in the school systems, and there's a really big need for them. But I think that a program like the VIPs would really maximize the volunteer base and increase support for the staff, and also provide a cost-effective way to bring enrichment opportunities to the schools. There's been a lot of discussions at different meetings and principals' coffees from parents who volunteer or would like to volunteer of sort of having a go-to person within that school to coordinate the time and the tasks and the people themselves. And there's often a last-minute sort of push for volunteers for different events, which isn't very efficient in the end. There's a lot of parents and family members out there who really could be utilized in our school system if they were just asked or felt like they could really contribute to some of the schools in a variety of different ways. I also think that the VIPs is a program that really encourages community involvement and outreach, and it really has a potential to unify many of our town's assets to help achieve some of our goals as a school district. It just seems like a logical way to work with the resources we already have, but in a more structured manner. And I also love that Tracy and her team have done a lot of the legwork already, and they have a model that we can really modify to fit and suit the needs of our school system here. So, do you want to say anything?
Oh, I just think the presentation is fantastic, and again, I have students.
Could you? I'm sorry. Could you come up to the mic so everybody can hear you?
People at home.
Yeah, it doesn't amplify it, but people at home.
Hello. Again, I have
Could you
two
introduce
children.
yourself, please?
My name's Liz Wiley,
Thank
and
you.
I have two children at mine at Forest. And again, I've tried to volunteer in the classroom, and one of their teachers was very, yes, come on in, and another teacher didn't really want us to, which is fine. But my time could be used somewhere else. And there's definitely a need, having participated in a lot of the principals' coffees and seeing that there's a need, but there's no organization around it. There's nobody that's saying, oh, we need parent volunteers in the lunchroom. They talked about hiring 2 staff people to be volunteer, to work in the lunchroom, and I thought that seems like a complete waste of resources when we could hire a part-time or a full-time volunteer coordinator to put all of that into action. There's a library that's not being used because there's not the resources to staff it. And again, there's just so many, not only parents, because we've talked to other people, there's people in this community that want to participate. There's, we know somebody that's a grandfather that likes to go in. My mom would like to go in. So there's people that would like to help out, but there's nobody to support that. And the resources that you've outlined and how clear this can be implemented, it seems sort of like a no-brainer. We need it. Our school needs it. Our teachers need it. The staff needs more support. It's there. We just need to make the connections, and this seems like the perfect opportunity to do it. Very supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm sure there's so much more that could be said around this amazing program, but I think that it's probably the right time to kind of open it up to the committee members to see if you have any specific questions around the existing program in Falmouth, just any information that maybe wasn't up there on the screen today.
Ken?
Yeah, just a question, Tracy. On the, in your budget, that's pretty impressive, from 9,000 to 23,000. Would you say a lot of that success is from extra hard work or the local community buying into, what VIPS has done? And the second part of that, is the school always responsible for 40%, or does that change based on grants and donations?
Okay, great questions. I think that money has always been there. It's just, it was kind of untapped, and I think our programs, we're just waiting to be told and shared. The first time I ever met with Rich Brothers at United Way, he said, how could this be? How could this be in Falmouth with 40,000 hours and 1,000 people, and I hadn't heard about it? So I think it's just, again, it's like getting out there and telling your story. There are a lot of small banks that we have a lot of banks on the Cape, and they all have charitable foundations. The grant writing process is very basic for them because they want to give the community their money. So they're out there, and I can give you the list. It's, it'll be competition, but that's all right. I'm up for it. The second question with the budget, 40%. That's a very good question. I'm not sure historically. I'm assuming that at one point the school did pay more. But Do you know?
Well, no, but I think that what happened, like if you look at how we actually budgeted that percentage, if the budget is going up with Tracy getting more grants, we're actually increasing our training. So like we're supplementing the program even more. So the public schools has maintained a steady amount, but if we're getting more money through the grant writing process, we're training our volunteers. We're actually getting quality training and bringing that in. So that money is actually supplementing and pushing the program further ahead rather than taking away from what the town has to supplement with. So.
And one of the things when I was there for the presentation that I thought was an important message from Tracy was that it's important for the Wareham public school system to have skin in the game. You need to be able to have the Wareham public schools see this as a benefit, as a program within the schools, make a commitment to it, just because it gives it more credibility, and also it doesn't run the risk of all of a sudden becoming an outside program, because it's seen as part of the Falmouth Public Schools and something that, again, is elevated.
Sure.
Well, I was just wondering, on the 40%, your 2011 budget rounded off to $90,000, so the school is responsible for about $36,000. Would that be part of the coordinator, whatever that position was, salary, or is that in addition?
Yeah, that would be part of that. So, in other words, my budget, the $90,000, includes the portion of my salary and my secretary's salary that we are responsible for. Does not include the part that the school district is responsible for.
Except one thing, the coordinators are actually are you mean the coordinators each one?
No,
I think he means the secretary.
The full-time
Yeah.
person that oversees the entire, comes from the school. One more question, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me a little about the involvement with the anti-bullying program?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic.
Every school. I heard you call
We call it No Guff, and it's so funny. We just went to this big thing up at Northeastern last week. There were 4,000 students. It was a statewide anti-bullying rally. It was so great, and we took our program up there, and we had a table. And the kids would come up, and they'd scratch their head, and I was like, "Are you stumbling on the word guff?" And they're like, "Yeah, what does it stand for?" I said, "Well, it's kind of an old-fashioned word." I said, "My grandfather used to say, 'Don't give me any guff.'" And it just really means, don't talk back, don't talk badly, don't say things that are negative. So that's kind of the history. It came up, it's 11 years old now. We've been doing this in Falmouth. It started with one day at the high school. It's now a whole town-wide, week-long at all the schools. The kids get T-shirts. There's programs going on, the planning for them already. And it's kind of like a multifaceted thing. I mean, the anti-bullying piece, we moved our week to January to coincide with the governor's no-name calling day that last Wednesday of the month, so that actually falls on the 25th of January. So we moved No Guff Week in Falmouth to be that whole week, just to have a nice sort of tie-in. But I would love to share some of the things that we're doing over there. It's really great. We do different things at different schools because the kids are different ages, and some things that work with the 5th and 6th graders wouldn't at the high school, but at the high school, on Friday afternoon, there's a big rally. The kids vote for students in their class that they feel sort of exemplify no guff behavior all the time. And that's, those kids, get that award, the No Guff Award. And it's fun. I mean, one of the local businesses pays for T-shirts, so all the kids wear the exact same T-shirts, and the staff, that week. So it's pretty fun.
I just want you to know I was racking my brains trying to figure out what the GUF stood for. Doing that.
I must have repeated that
You're not old enough, Ken. I knew what guff was.
Did you? Yeah, it's funny. The kids today do not know, except in Falmouth, but it was funny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Cliff?
No, kudos. I think that one of the advantages that you have in Falmouth that we may not have here is the fact that I have a summer house in Falmouth also. The resources there. I mean, you've got the Woods Hole, and you've got a lot of resources that you can tap into. We're getting there, especially our industrial base. But what I like about the program is that you provide a hub for the volunteers to feel comfortable going into schools. Right now, I think that the administrators are overworked, the teachers are overworked, and almost people that we talk to that want to volunteer really don't feel real comfortable with the fact that, you know, they've got to sort of take the initiative, and then they're not really sure what's going on, and we really don't have the time internally to provide the kind of support that they really need. What this does is it provides a nucleus or a hub, if you will, for the volunteers to feel comfortable with. And I think that that's incredibly important. And, you know, from where I stand, and I've talked to Rhonda about this in terms of the community, the best way to support your public schools, the best way to get community support in your public schools is to get people involved in the public schools. And the more people you get involved, the more support you're going to get. And so I think it's a snowball effect that just, it's a phenomenon. It just takes off just like a snowball. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because the more support you have, obviously the more support you're going to get for the public schools. A lot of your goals, believe it or not, mirror some of the goals of our charitable contribution. We have a education foundation also in Wareham, and I think some of your goals mirror that. So there might be an opportunity for us to look at both things simultaneously.
We have one as well.
I'm really enthused about it. I feel good about it. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come down and speak to us, and I want to thank Rhonda for bringing this to our attention.
Could I just add something on the end? In what you were saying, they're housed in our public at our high school. VIPS has always been in one of our schools, so that makes them part of our school. It's not as if they are just in one room in an elementary school. So it's quite an important place where their office is. So to handle that many people, and the seriousness of it is that they have their office at the high school now. So in thinking that makes them part of our community.
No, I think it's great, and
I'm glad to hear that from you.
Also as a retired educator, I can appreciate it.
Good, thanks.
All set?
Yep, thank you.
Jeff, one quick thing.
Sure.
I just want to give you credit and thank you for over 40 years of teaching. That's fantastic, and
The
I'm
year
sure
was
they...
1959. So now think how
He was
much
20 years
I
old in
know.
1959. Thank you.
First of all, the least important question I have is, I'm trying to understand, there's a 501c3.
Yes.
There's Wareham, Falmouth Public Schools. You're an employee of Falmouth Public Schools.
Correct.
Is there a legal relationship between the 501c3 and Falmouth, and what is it? Is there a contract?
No, we're actually, our 501c3, if you go deep down into the paperwork, we can only exist as a 501c3 because we're attached to Falmouth Public Schools, and I probably am not getting all that fancy lingo right.
When you say attached, are you a
we are a 501c3
subsidiary of Falmouth
like,
Public Schools?
I think it's no. We it's just sort of in the way the federal government structures, the IRS structures are the way we can receive charitable donations.
But you're the 501c3 is a part of, forget the legal terminology, is a part of Falmouth Public Schools.
No.
I don't think it can be. No.
I didn't think so either.
It can't be.
No. But we could not exist without Falmouth Public Schools. So I'm probably not, I wish I could give you the terminology, but
maybe Dr. Rabinovich, I think that you are right. In order to be a 501c3, C3, you have to have a public, or not a public, a charitable or a support vehicle. And so Falmouth Public Schools would be that support. You are working to support Falmouth Public Schools, but you are in fact a corporation within yourself supporting Falmouth Public Schools. Yes. But in order to get that, you have to name some kind of beneficiary to your services.
Yep.
Am I right?
That's right.
Yes, that's one of the particular. Right. There are 3 or 4 different varieties of the 501(c)(3)s, and one of them is an educational one, and they're very precise about the ties. You can't be tied But you can be supportive, and when you write the preamble in your constitution of the organization, that's what ties you. You have to say what you're going to do, what you're going to support, and that's where the charitable part comes.
So that's the foundation for
Yes.
Wareham Education.
That's what we currently do.
Okay. So I'm sitting here and
That
I'm
was
going to
your
thank
easy
you more than
question?
once.
That was your easy question.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
No, that
That's
wasn't
our chairman.
that was the least important question.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to do it more than once, but I want to thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been enlightening, enjoyable, and greatly appreciated, as well as to Liz and Rebecca for being here. Was there a time in your 29-year history where you almost failed?
I really can't answer that because I'm kind of the new kid on the block. I'm the second director, and I've been here since '06.
Was there a time, then let me ask it a different way. Was there a certain number of years before you felt that you had a critical mass, enough momentum, that it essentially became a part of the culture of Falmouth and Falmouth Public Schools? I mean, that obviously it couldn't always have been so. And how long did it take for it to become embedded into the culture of the school district?
Okay, well, before I spoke with Rhonda, we were talking with the folks in New Bedford. They brought 10 people to Falmouth and asked us questions for 2 hours. So in preparation for that, I went through some of the old paperwork and notes and minutes. And I honestly, other than just starting with 8 and then building to like 15 and then 30, it really took off because of that year. They spoke to everyone. They did focus groups. They did surveys. They really did their homework.
That's the planning team.
That's
that
the
you're
planning
talking
team
about.
I was talking about.
Okay.
One whole year.
But that was before anyone was coming into the schools.
Yep.
If you already have volunteers in your school systems, you're already
Ahead.
beyond where
Yeah.
they started. No one went into schools in
Yeah.
1983 or 1982.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, I know you talked about the fact that you're competing for dollars, and as a part of a number of not-for-profits, I understand that that's the nature of the not-for-profit world. Do you find yourself also competing with other organizations? As I go around the schools to PTA meetings, school council meetings, et cetera, it's very clear that there's a core group of volunteers already within Wareham, and it's, they talk about, 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. I think it's probably more like 5% of the people doing 95% of the work. But do you find yourself, did you essentially absorb those people, or did you find new people, or both? Meaning, some of those people already exist, and we have 2 examples right now.
Yeah.
So did you end up absorbing their energy, because every community has a finite amount of energy, or did you literally create new energy as a part of this effort?
In the beginning, I think we created new energy. Today, what we do is we partner.
So the PTO, for example.
Oh, okay, so that's interesting. So we're kind of like an umbrella. So the PTOs are going to exist because they're fundraising for very specific things, like field trips, like computers, like smart boards and things, very specific school-based things. So we try very hard not to compete with any of their fundraising efforts. Like, we're never going to sell cookie dough. We're never going to have a bake sale. We let them thrive in doing what they want to do for their school. We're sort of the bigger picture, the umbrella, where the folks who work on the PTO, that 5% that has all that energy, they're our sort of outstanding volunteers. They're part of our family. Anyone who volunteers in Falmouth Public Schools, whether it's for an hour or 20 hours a week, is a VIPS volunteer.
How would they react to the idea that they're under your umbrella?
I wouldn't say under. I'd say part of. I actually had to deal with that when I first took this job, because there was a little bit of a disconnect before, but I came in as a parent, as an active parent volunteer, and I didn't ever feel like I was part of the club. So we kind of quickly got rid of all those things and said, no, we're actually all one big family. So it can happen where people feel like, oh, what is this entity trying to come in and sort of oversee us? So in that case, we would invite those people to be on the planning team. I partner with everybody because my feeling is, why exclude or why compete when you can actually do it better, possibly together? So we've done a lot of things where I've written grants now with Falmouth Human Services, with the folks from PAL. Are we competing for the same dollars for these local bank grants? Yeah, but if we can do it together, they see the kids after school, I see them during the school day. So we've started, I don't know, I mean, I'm not really, I don't like animosity and confrontation, so we try to find a way that people can feel like their contribution is part of something bigger. And in the end, it's for Falmouth Public Schools students.
Yes.
Say something.
Yes.
I think that you deal with that, whatever it could be, through communication, and like she said, going in and having a plan for what you think you can do to supplement the things that are already going on, or to, but also to work with each one of the existing groups to ask for their feedback on really what this should be. Because the thing is that I've been to all of the PTAs, and what I've heard is they need more, they need help, they need, and they're not doing what this could be doing. Their responsibility is not getting more volunteers in the public school system. Their job is to do fundraising efforts. At least right now, many of them are focused on fundraising efforts, which is very different than what this is. And so, again, I can see going forward that absolutely there could be some confusion, I wouldn't even call it tension, some confusion around how this is going to be different or the same as the existing programs. We have to, with that group, we have to make sure that transparency, and we are absolutely communicating, including those folks into the process instead of just putting this on top of it.
I must say, one of the most attractive things you said during your presentation to me that resonated with me was the fact that my perception is that there is an unfortunate, I guess I'll call it what I think it is, intimidation factor between parents and the school. Mm-hmm. For the life of me, I don't understand it. Perhaps because of my nature, I'm not intimidated very easily, but it's very clear that it exists. And if you're playing a vital role in essentially eliminating intimidation from getting in the way of people volunteering and feeling impactful and useful and channeling their energy, I think that in and of itself is fabulous. And even though I am the chair, I feel like I could go on for a long time, and this guy would probably nudge me. So I'm going to thank you again.
Absolutely.
For a great presentation. You have hopefully created some momentum in Wareham to do something similar. We promise to honor the tips you have given because I suspect they are very wise, and I hope we can continue to talk as we progress in our thinking. And thank you again to Liz and Rebecca for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
I don't
Yes.
know if it's appropriate or not, but sorry to spring this on you, but as we were going
That's
through,
not allowed.
No surprises.
I'm wondering if I'd like to make a motion for this committee's approval for an exploratory committee to see if this is something that we would like to have in Wareham, and that exploratory committee would come back and present to this group Wareham-specific information.
I take it you're volunteering to chair this committee.
I am.
So we have a motion on the table. I'll accept the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm in favor of Rhonda.
Opposed? Abstained? It passes, and I assume you'll be recruiting some assistance.
I will report back to the board with who, how that selection process will begin.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Kevin Francis is the trainer, right?
That's as good as mine.
You have an esteemed guest with you there, Mark.
Kevin.
You know he's a tennis player.
He is?
Yes.
Thought he wrestled. He did.
Yeah, he's got to work on his serve though.
Jeff, his guest sees me all the time at physical therapy for the last 28 years, it seems like.
I hope he's giving and not getting.
You can almost do the field goal.
Welcome, Mark.
Oh, I know.
And Kevin.
How are you guys?
The floor is yours.
We're here for our concussion policy that the state has mandated that all schools in Massachusetts, and I forwarded, I believe, a copy. And the policy has a purpose, and it's a pre-participation requirement training that we ask each and every one of our athletes, parents, and coaches to go through, and I keep the paperwork on that, and that's done by completing a course on www.nflslearn.com, and that is a course that's about 20 minutes long. It's done online. You print a certificate that you have taken the course, and it kind of educates you on what to look for in case of a concussion, and when there's a concussion, what do you do with it from there. Once a student athlete is considered to have a concussion, we have an exclusion from play, and that's when they immediately see the attention of a physician, and then the physician, when they're non-symptomatic, will give Kevin the okay, and I'll let Kevin speak on his behalf in a minute, to go ahead and do a gradual return to play, and Kevin will explain that in 1 second. And then once that's done, physician has to clear, and everything's in here. The physician has to clear the athlete to be able to come back and participate in athletics and or any other activity. When a kid has a bad concussion, they don't want you doing anything. And then our athletic director, my athletic director responsibilities is that I myself participate in the annual review and revision. I take the course every year as well. The athletic director completes the annual online training. The athletic director shall ensure the training of coaches, staff, parents, volunteers, and students. There's a sign-off sheet that I have that on our consent form that states each student, athlete, and parent has completed the course. They sign off that they have done so. All the coaches get certified, and I keep those certified forms in my file, and they're not allowed to coach until it's completed. And then I also ensure medically cleared list is provided to all coaches, assistants, and volunteers. No students participate without clearance. Once a concussion is deemed, then Kevin does his work, and then once the physician clears them, then we allow them back on the field. And we ensure that athletes are prohibited from engaging in any unreasonable, dangerous athletic activity that would be in the health or danger of the athlete, including using a helmet or any other sports equipment as a weapon. We ask our coaches to educate their kids on how to tackle correctly, and we spend 3 days of non-contact in sports like football and things like that, where that is supposed to be form-fit tackling, head up. Don't use your helmets as weapons in hockey or anything like that. And you're seeing that in the pro game right now, that there's severe penalties for using your helmet as a weapon of any sort. So Kevin is, once the kid has a concussion, Kevin then puts them through, and he does a great job with this. I mean, I've watched him, and he's very, very thorough with how he treats the athlete, and he does what they call a gradual return to play once they're non-symptomatic. And if Kevin, you want to explain that for him?
So when an athlete is suspected of a concussion, whether they go helmet to helmet or whatever the case may be, if a concussion is suspected, they're removed from play. Upon further assessment by myself, if they show signs and symptoms of concussion, at that point I'm going to fill out this form. This is the acute concussion evaluation form. This is what I use. This is what South Coast Hospitals decided to use with their athletic trainers. This I fill out. I send the kid to the doctor because I need to consult with a physician as part of the Department of Public Health guidelines. On the back they have our plan of care that I'm going to have signed off saying, athlete may start the gradual return to play once they're asymptomatic for 24 hours. Physician signs that. I monitor the kid as every day. Once they're asymptomatic for 24 hours, they start each process. It's a 7-step process that I do. Every step is different. It doesn't specify what your return to play is. This is what I'm comfortable with. An athlete may not move on to the next step until they can complete said step without resumption of symptoms. So it starts off with something very light, and then it gets intense as the steps go on. And then I use this form for that, but once they are getting close to the end here, we make another appointment where the athlete, I give them the post-concussion form by the DPH, send them back to the doctor for final clearance, and then once the physician is satisfied, come back, that's signed, kid is good to go.
Any questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Rhonda?
I head up the policy review committee, and unfortunately we weren't able to look at this policy and discuss it in length because we didn't have a quorum, but there were a couple issues that popped up that I just wanted to ask about. One is the beginning. It talks about each one of the students having to complete an online form. There was concern that not every student has access or household has access. What is there discussion of adding an opportunity in there to have it taken some other way?
In our concussion policy, we've stated that if a athlete does not have access to a computer, that we will provide that at the school for them after hours. So we'll have a day that there's students that are not allowed to take it. They can go to the computer lab with their coach. In fact, in Plymouth, we did it for the entire first week. We had one coach who was at the computers monitoring that to make sure that they completed the course.
Okay. So where is it in the actual policy? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's in the mask one.
Yeah, in the policy that we have in front of us and the one that we had, it didn't talk about that. So
arrangements will be made with the athletic director for internet access in the event that is not available to the parent guardian. The second, where it says pre-participation requirement training.
First paragraph, last sentence.
Right on the first paragraph, last sentence.
Yeah, ours doesn't read that. Ours says this requirement. It ends with this requirement may be met by completing the online course and providing a certificate of completion. So we might not have gotten an updated one, but the one that we have in our packet doesn't include.
This was forwarded, I think, maybe Monday. I forwarded the first one that we gave was a draft, and then after hearing comments, we revamped it to the next one. I can forward it to you in the morning.
Please.
Do you have one? Yeah?
Yeah, we don't have the most updated one.
Okay.
Michelle, didn't you, because you completed for me that comparison between the two policies.
That came in after the school committee, and we didn't discuss it yet.
Okay, because that's
probably the
I
one.
was looking for that piece of paper, because I have the other.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can we ask?
All right, as soon as Rhonda's,
Okay.
yeah, are you all set?
The only other one was just the whole section about communication to the parent. And right now, it does read that, communicating to the parent, so the child has sustained an injury that we think is a concussion, and that the parent is notified after the practice or after the game.
That was my question.
Is it? Yeah. Sorry, I should just
No,
let you
go ahead. That's a good question.
I have a problem with that. That we're not communicating immediately. I can understand that the coach needs to stay there, but a designee or someone is communicating. If a parent isn't there, that if a child has sustained a head injury, that we are communicating immediately to the parent.
What I've been doing, whether it's a practice or a game, is I've contacted the parent right away.
Okay.
That's been my practice.
Okay.
The way that it's written into the DPH regs, it doesn't say that the athletic trainer is responsible. It says the coach is responsible, because not every school has an athletic trainer. What I've been doing with every kid is, let's say, take football for instance, kid gets hit, kind of is woozy, I remove him from play, I monitor him throughout that, and then after the game, provided they haven't gone south or gotten more symptomatic, I do a much more formal eval, and then I call the parent, where I say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, this is what happened. Please monitor him or her. If it's happened at a practice, it's usually right away. I take the kid in. Okay, John Doe, let's go call your parents. I think you've had a concussion. It's pretty much been right away if it's a parent, but a concussion is kind of a progressive type of thing where the kid can get worse as you go on or less, so it's not...
Right, if they get better or if they get worse, I think you'll probably hear from us that, well, I'll only speak for myself, that I feel that if the injury is serious enough that we have to pull the kid out of the game, and we're monitoring them, I don't care if it even gets better, I would want the parent contacted immediately, and I would want that written into the policy. But I'll let my other committee members speak.
That's it?
Yep, those are the comments that I
Cliff?
have. Thank you.
I can speak to the same thing. I've been a coach, and my 3 children are athletes, and there are enough assistants or designees at a practice or a game that makes contacting the parent not that difficult. So I don't think that this would be a very difficult thing to do, and I absolutely agree with Rhonda. If my child was suspected of having a concussion or some kind of a head injury, I would want to know right away so that I could make a decision as to what I wanted to do in terms of my child. So I don't think it will be an imposition. I don't think it will be anything that can't be done, and I think that language should be inserted into the policy. I will not approve the policy without that language in there.
Where would you like it inserted?
Right there where they've got, a coach shall communicate the nature of the injury directly to the parent in person or by phone immediately after the practice of communication. I'd just take that sentence right out of there and put immediately, period. Coach or his designee.
So
Just to be
immediately
clear,
take after the practice of completion.
Just to
Right.
be clear, we're talking about the third bullet, and you're recommending the deletion of after the practice or competition
That's correct.
in which the student has been removed from play. So it's just immediately in which this,
Immediately after the student has been removed from play.
immediately,
Just reword it.
Just get rid of the practice or
it doesn't quite work well to do
competition.
that.
Just say a parent will be
Immediately after a student has been removed from play, period.
Yeah.
So you're
For a
deleting the
suspected
practice
head
or
injury.
competition in
yes,
which a...
So we're deleting after the practice
Or
or
competition.
competition in which,
Right.
and we're inserting the word after instead of,
Well, if you leave after and just demit the practice or competition in which.
Michelle, why don't you read what you've got if you're ready?
I'm just deleting the practice or competition in which in which, be immediately after a student has been removed from play.
Fine, due to a head injury, et cetera. Yes, the after is after immediately. Okay. You all set, Cliff?
Yep.
Ken?
I'm all set.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just for
Can we
process.
put coach or designee? Do you have that, Michelle?
The coach or designee, so after the word coach, you want and designee.
Yeah, because if in the middle of the game, the coach,
Designate.
he'll send somebody to make the call or whatever, but
That's fine.
I don't know if he has to do it personally.
Just as process, the information on this, we got the sample things on December 9th from Mass Association of School Committees. Today, and I haven't even had a chance to read it, one came from the Superintendent's Association. At our January meeting, it's going to be discussed. So the law says I have to affirm that we have a policy, but it is a preliminary policy, and it doesn't have to be affirmed, so to speak, until March 2012. So my thought is if we approve tonight Then as new information comes in, we can then bring it back to policy review with the new information and the current one, and then if anyone wants to make any further
That's fine.
Yeah,
things.
this is a draft, that's correct. It's not technically due until March.
Right,
It's an
but we have
interim
to-
policy.
Right, we have to
Yeah,
have an
right.
interim,
Okay, that's fine.
because football season is over and, hockey we're in the middle of.
Point of clarification?
So is a
Yes.
motion in order?
Not yet,
Okay.
but it will be.
Point of clarification, but Mr. Dr. Rabinovich, approval, but you're okay with us approving it with the change that we just talked about?
Yes.
All right, I just want to make sure that you weren't saying approve it as is.
No,
Okay.
no, with the change.
Thanks.
There's one more change too that on our end, and after where it says return to play, the last sentence says if an athlete has 2 concussions within a 30-day period, he or she will sit out the remainder of the season, not year. So we would like,
And that's my own policy that I've practiced ever since I've entered the athletic training field.
because in other words, a student athlete could get their second concussion within the first 2 weeks of the season, and the following winter season may be healthy enough to participate. If a doctor says that they're healthy enough to participate, then they can return to play for that season. See, I put year, I meant season. I just misworded it.
It's still up to the physician to release the
That's right.
student.
Always.
Yeah.
There's no one but the physician can
Yeah.
clear.
I think it should say season and not year.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Did you get
Okay.
that?
Okay, I'm putting on my coaching hat now, and I'm trying to imagine all these people that are going to have to be trained. And now I'm thinking specifically, we can get all the students in a room and put a computer in front of them, and I'm thinking that even then, it might be a real good idea to do that as a group because kids forget, they don't show up, etc. But I'm trying to imagine also getting parents trained. And is it true that under this policy, that if we don't have something that shows that a parent has been trained, then, and not just a signature, but an actual certificate, then that child is not going to be allowed to play the sport?
No, it's not mandated. It's mandated that the parent, if the parent signs off, I have on our consent form saying, I have completed the online concussion course. I give the website and athlete signature, parent signature. The parent signs off that they have completed that course.
But they don't actually ever have to prove it.
No, I think it would be impossible to bring.
Bishop
two-
Stang did the same thing.
Everyone,
They put it in their
everyone.
student
Plymouth,
handbook.
Before I wrote this up, I called the numbers to Plymouth. Everyone does it where if a parent's willing to sign that they have taken the course. I mean, I don't think we can micromanage every single parent that's playing sports that they.
So a student
took
has
the
to
course.
prove it. Yes?
No, a student has to sign off that they have taken the course.
Okay.
The parent
Coach has
sign
to
off that they've
coach
taken
has to prove it.
it. Coach has to prove it.
Coach, staff, anybody who's employed under the control of, so to speak,
Yes.
the school
So
district.
that they're aware of the symptoms,
So
yeah.
parents and students are just asked to sign that they've taken it.
That's correct.
It does seem to me that we ought to at least perhaps facilitate that.
I think it's
you've done
impossible, I really do. I think you're looking at.
No, let me finish, please. I don't mean insist on it by anything that we can't control, but you've done a great job with things like captain's nights, right? It seems to me that if we showed the film at that time, because basically it's a film, somehow got this program, took an intermediate step, because I'm very concerned that signature ultimately is going to mean nothing.
From my discussions with my fellow athletic trainers with the hospital group, Bishop Stang, athletic trainer Kathy Thornton, she's been big on this. She's been the one that's keeping all of us in the hospital up to date on it. And she's spoken with the DPH, and she's figured out everything that we've needed to do as far as athletic trainers are concerned, and as far as what we need to do with the pre-participation and the post forms and what forms to use and all the communication. They are putting the onus on the parents and the athletes to get that education done on their own, because I think they're all in agreement that it's almost impossible to get all that proof. So it's just like signing any other document that you're saying, yes, I've done this, and if they say, well, I didn't know, and then you, well, yes, you did because you signed. I know what you're saying is that they may or may not do it, but I think you need to put some responsibility on those people because
I don't disagree with that at all. I just think to the
I just don't
extent
see
that
how we can do it. There's enough paperwork that's going along with this that we have mountains of it.
I'm not talking about adding any paperwork, just to be clear. But, okay.
There's also a form that the kids have to sign, that the parents have to sign out on the student athlete. It's called a pre-participation head injury concussion reporting form, which is in our policy here. That states whether or not they've ever had a concussion. So we can track how many kids have had previous concussions, and Kevin keeps it on file. So let's say a kid is in the middle of a competition, has a concussion, Kevin can look at the file and say, oh boy, last season you also had a concussion. Now we're dealing with 2. We let the doctor know and it's treated different. So there's I think we've done about as much as we possibly could to make sure we're protecting the student athlete, particularly with Kevin. Kevin does a great job. I've dealt with a lot of trainers, and
I understand.
He doesn't let the kid back on.
Go ahead, Cliff.
I kind of agree with the folks down there in terms of onus of responsibility. We leave ourselves wide open. If we take on the responsibility of providing a forum in which this training takes place, then we also run the risk of being accused of not going far enough and not having the training good enough. I think that if we put the onus of responsibility squarely on the parent where it belongs, first of all, we can't be accused of not going far enough because it's not our responsibility. It's the parent's responsibility because the signature indicates to us that the parent has fulfilled that responsibility and that duty and has signed off on the fact that they've taken the course. So I've spoken about this issue several times, not about the head injury, but about taking on all of the duties that belong squarely in the hands of the family. And I think that this is one of them. Certainly we're going to do everything within our power to ensure that a kid is not playing hurt. But ultimately, the parents have to understand that they have to be aware of their responsibility in terms of academics as well as athletics. And I think it's just, we just can't take it all on. So I think that what you recommend, I would support what you've recommended. And I don't think that we should get into the training business for parents at this point in time, because it leaves ourselves wide open for the criticism that we didn't go far enough. That's just my opinion, Jeff.
And I do it at Meet the Coaches Night. I spend time in front of all the parents and the athletes discussing the importance of it, to sit down together and take the course, and before you sign consent forms and things like that, that you did. Like you said, I don't, to manage every parent and to make sure they take the course, and I just don't know if there's enough.
Fair enough. Michelle, could you give back to the committee all of the changes so that we can incorporate it into an amendment? Oh, yes, you do. I told you we'd be hearing from you.
That third bullet, I think, is the one that's in question.
Yeah, the coach or designee shall communicate.
Right. It starts with the coach, and we're going to put or designee.
Right.
Yes.
I have that one. On that third bullet. Then we're going to take away the practice or competition in which, and we're going to just say immediately after a student has been removed from play.
Okay.
And then we're also going to add, under return to play, take out year and put season.
Okay.
That's the only one I have.
That's
Does
it.
anybody have anything else? You guys good with those changes?
That's good, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, as a high school referee, 200 of us, we all had to take the online concussion test and produce a certificate to the board, or you wouldn't be able to officiate any games. I sort of lean towards what Jeff is saying, at least for the players, is I think you could actually have, if you have the football team You could have them in one room,
Players, yeah.
right? You can have them in one room and show this PowerPoint, the presentation to them, and then when they leave the room, they can sign off. They can sign off on that. But I just have a problem with the athlete themselves just signing off and saying that they have done this. I think if you have someone like the trainer in the room for any questions or anything and you show it, I don't see why that can't be done.
Well, frankly, as a coach, I may do it, not to change the policy, but just to augment and reinforce the policy. And I assume, Mark, you wouldn't have any problem with a coach doing that. I wouldn't be altering it, I'd just be reinforcing it.
You wouldn't have to do it with every sport because naturally it runs year to year, correct, Mark?
Once a year, yeah.
Right.
So you just want the coaches to speak on the nature of concussion signs and symptoms with their athletes?
Let's face it, there are days when we can't practice.
Well, that is true.
So they'd still be signing the form, everything would be according to the policy, but if I took a rain date that I couldn't be on the courts and reinforced this by making sure they understood the importance of concussions, I don't think I'm doing any harm. Mark, you're hesitant.
I'd rather see you practice, honestly, if you're thinking of
Oh, no, I'd rather be at practice every day of the week.
of an athletic director's standpoint, because I think that, I honestly think that it's become to the point where we're going over the top with it. If a parent, I know my wife took the course because she had to sign off in Plymouth that my daughter was playing the sport, and my daughter also took it too. And I think we have to, as adults, say to the parents and to the, it's your responsibility as well to sit down with your student athlete. This is important stuff. I mean, it's the health of your child to make sure that you're taking the course. And the thing about that is that you have to do it before the season. So if they sign off that they took the course and then you went ahead 2 weeks later and had them retake the course, I mean, I don't know what benefit you get out of that because they had to sign they already did it.
Enough said. That's
You know
fine.
what I mean?
I'll take a motion for the policy as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Well, I was going to,
For discussion, second.
second,
Okay.
I was going to say the motion a little bit differently.
Okay, how did you want to rephrase it?
I was going to make the motion to accept this tentative draft policy until which time we can vote on a more permanent policy.
I think they're looking for the use of the word interim, if you don't mind.
Well, interim, fine, that's fine.
Okay.
But by the way the motion was stated, it doesn't say that, and I think it's important to have that in there.
Would you withdraw your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
What if excuse me for a minute, what if you made a good point when you said meet the parents night. What if I set up something to meet the parents night every season with all the athletes and parents are there, some kind of video of some sort, I'll call the state or I'll call the board, and play that as my introduction into parents night, and say, no, this is something that we're, and then I'll reinforce taking the course on your own, signing off that you had done so, but this will give them a preliminary into that.
Mark, that's great.
You can do that, but it doesn't have to be in this
Yes,
policy.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, as long as,
good.
but that's just something that we can do in Wareham to help
Okay.
out.
Cliff, we've got the motion withdrawn. You're withdrawing your second. Would you make the motion now the way you feel comfortable with it?
I move that we accept the policy this policy presented to us this evening as amended as an interim policy for concussion of student athletes.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Third.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and let's hope we don't have to use it.
That just gave me a headache.
Are you dizzy?
You feel nauseous?
Do I need to come?
We're gonna keep going.
Anna?
She's coming.
Anna Miranda, come on down.
Would you like to do the master go advancement, because I need to set up tech-wise?
Excuse me?
Just set up tech-wise, do we want to go on to the?
Yes, we can do the master plan, if
Yes,
that is okay
please.
with you.
Just went off.
Fine, thank you. Go ahead, Barry.
Okay, in your package, there is a document. This was the RFI that we sent out, request for qualifications for Wareham Public Schools Master Plan Study. Approximately every 10 years, the district should have a master plan done of its facilities to let you know about things that need to be done to the facilities to keep them current. And at the same time, this does a space needs study from an educational point of view. It looks at square footage and what the state believes you should have versus what you have. The purpose for this now is that it is a first step before you do a feasibility study for the school building authority. And when we had the walkthrough from the MSBA, they asked us about this, and we said to them, we had put out an RFI, and they said we should continue down that path. It would help the process. So what I'm here asking you to put together I'm going to look at to an appointment of a designer selection committee for the Wareham Public School Master Plan. I am recommending the following composition for the selection committee. The superintendent, one member of the school board, one member of the finance board, the director of operations and finance, one member of the finance committee, one member of the capital planning committee, one local builder, and one local architect. This mirrors a school building committee that I worked on for the building of the middle school, and these are people who would have some expertise when we look through the proposals. We currently, I think, have 8 proposals that came in that need to be looked at. We first have to come up with a rubric in order to grade them, and then after that process, we would bring, this committee would look at it, make a recommendation, we'd bring the recommendation back to this board and ask for this board to approve appointing whichever group is successful as the group that will do the master plan.
Okay, so what you're looking for is a motion to approve the formation of a designer selection committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
With the following
And is
composition.
Right. And is it accurate to say that the formation of the designer selection committee in and of itself would not need a budget?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions before we move on this? Yes.
We did this 10 years ago?
Probably 20 years ago was the last one that we did. That was complete.
The one that we did 20 years ago, is that what gave us the information needed to submit the information to the state to get it?
No, it's the one we used when we did the middle school project. We used, when you turn in information to the state requesting a building to be done, you have to give them information. So the 20-year one was updated with the information that we had available to us, but it wasn't professionally done.
And do we know generally, if we do move forward, what a cost for something like this is?
Yes, I have encumbered a certain amount of money in our choice account to pay for this, after meeting with an architect and getting some ballpark figures.
Do you have
generally what it cost last time or what we would be looking at?
I really don't know 20 years ago what it cost.
Well, how much have you encumbered?
This can cost, depending on what the committee asks them to do. There's a negotiation. This is not like a low bid thing where you come out and you say, all right, open
There's
up
a
the
high
bid
and a
and
low.
it goes to that. So there's a range, and the range could be between 20,000 and 40,000, depending on what you're looking at. If you recall, when we were looking to do the study of the Everett Center, I was looking for approximately $10,000 to do it for one building. Because you're talking about specialists that need to come in and do, particularly when it comes to the older facilities and what they need.
You all set?
Yeah, I mean, I have an opinion, it's not a question.
You want to share it?
Well, I absolutely think that information is key, especially when it comes to our buildings, and that this information will be useful to this committee as well as to the community on how we fare compared to other schools when it comes to the educational environment that we're providing for our students. So I would love that we would have an opportunity to gain this information. I'm glad that there isn't a decision that needs to be made on a budget right now, and that, again, I think that I would still approve the formation of this committee, but I think that we really need to look at our budget year to see if this is something that we would actually go forward and do this year. But I think that I don't think that would change my vote on forming the committee.
Ken?
I'm all set.
Cliff?
What's that?
I just want to say that unfortunately I find myself sitting here once again. It doesn't have any influence on my vote on this particular issue. But I find myself sitting here not wanting to spend any money that I know is a precursor to a lot more money, for which there is not necessarily consensus and support within the community to do. Either because there are different agendas or because there just isn't the money and no one wants to take the actions necessary. We all know that it took 3 votes to get the middle school project going, and that was 89 cents on the dollar. We have no illusions that anything associated with Minot Forest is going to be 89 cents on the dollar. It's probably going to be more like, what, 50 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar, something like that. So I'm not happy with the fact that I'm sitting here feeling this way, but I just want you to know that I think it behooves the leadership of this town, all of the leadership of this town, to get on the same page with respect to the standards that we have for how we provide services, and that certainly includes schools. And right now, I'm not sure we are. But having said that, I will take a motion on the formation of a designer selection committee with the composition as outlined by the superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, it passed. And what is the process by which we will pick those? Is that something?
I'm going to send a letter to each of the chairs of the various committees asking them to find somebody that would be willing to serve.
Okay.
For them to appoint.
I understand. Okay, thank you. Anna, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Before I do my financial report, I just wanted to share a couple of things with the committee. One, to acknowledge the conclusion of our school supply drive, the Cape Verdean School Supply Drive. We were able to ship 5 containers, huge barrel containers full of school supplies. Within this community, we collected over 1,200 items. Just so impressed, so grateful for the generosity of all the folks that came out. whether it was through monetary donation or the actual supplies. I'd also like to acknowledge Staples for donating over $250 worth of teacher, really good teacher materials that those teachers would need. And sometime this week, it's going to be a very Merry, Merry Christmas in Cape Verde, because the ship left around December 7th and is anticipated to get there sometime the end of this week. I'm sure we'll have photos and just news and great news to share with you once they do receive it and they send us stuff. And last but not least, I really want to acknowledge the Cape Verde Festival Committee, not only for their graciousness in letting us set up a booth, to roll this thing out back in August, and also for a very generous donation that helped us to be able to meet the shipping costs and, to purchase the barrels and to do all of that. So again, obrigado, okay? The other thing is I had some fun today, and I want to kind of share it with folks. I don't have a lot of fun nowadays in this world. I don't anymore. I had the opportunity to go over to the Multi-Service Center at the Senior Center, and this morning the Deacon's Chorus went there and performed and gave a wonderful, wonderful little holiday show for the seniors, and then did a sing-along, and they were really grateful, and I just want to acknowledge the Mrs. Panarisi and Mr. Hart, the music teacher, and our seniors and our kids. They were just great. They were absolutely great. Okay, with those two things done, as you can see by the number of schedules up on your table, the financial report really doesn't have it's rather benign, because we really don't have much of a change since the last financial report. The bottom line, we're looking at about a 0.5% difference between where we were last year and this year. Basically, so I'd like to maybe just go through and just highlight the things that I want to bring to your attention, and then if you have questions, you can then have some questions.
Just a quick point of information. I'm looking at 5868 and 6130. Those are different numbers than I'm looking at on the PDF that Michelle sent us. Is there a reason why they should be slightly different?
No.
Different dates?
I have the same numbers on this PDF.
Which one?
Which one do you have?
Yeah.
At this one?
Yeah.
They were looking at this.
Oh, you're looking at
particular
the summary. Okay.
Yes, because they don't have that. I don't. Oh, yes, they do.
Oh, no,
on
they
the
do.
second page.
Yeah. On this one, Jeff.
So this
Because
is
what I
she's
do is,
looking is
this is
I'm looking at
basically-
something called the Wareham Public Schools Monthly Financial Report.
Right, but if you go to
Shouldn't they be the same numbers?
Wareham Public School Monthly Financial Report, I think maybe roll up different.
No, that's
these
right.
together.
No, I'm looking at that one.
You're looking at that one?
That one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you're looking at the end figure.
LEA net total.
Okay.
Is that 5868, the LEA net total?
No, only for administration, only for these functions.
Okay, go ahead.
This only for those functions,
Fine.
not for the end.
Okay.
Okay? All right. And I've explained previously, we're going to see that difference in district leadership for a bit because of different amounts in what we've expended in terms of contract services from last year to this year. That's pretty uneventful.
You're right, they're the same. Sorry, my
Yeah.
fault.
Okay. Instructional leadership, again, the department heads' curriculums, because of the restructuring, we went from 10 to 13. So you really see a little bit of a difference there. Teaching and other teaching services, we're looking at less than a 0.5% variance in terms of where we were last year and this year, and I think that tends to be the number I pay the most attention to, is that 2305 and 2310, which is really the bulk of our budget, looking at 72.87 now and 72.04 prior year. So feeling good about that. Substitutes, I did want to share that last year at this time we had expended $137,590. Currently, we have only expended $96,824. So we saw a decrease the last month, so it's a nice pattern. We're definitely seeing a decrease in the teacher substitute line.
How are you doing on the little mystery, though?
Well, I think I found some of it. I believe that there's a certain amount of professional development substitute charges were charged to the regular account because there wasn't enough funding. So I'm kind of having to dig through and go through and find it. Yeah.
Okay.
So that could be
I'll
one
stay tuned.
thing, but that's not to say that's the whole thing. Who knows?
I'll stay tuned. Okay.
Okay, so there. In the guidance, again, as we've explained previously, it's because of positions that had to go back into the LEA that had been previously funded through ARA or through the Ed Jobs. Other student services, you're looking at a very, very slight variance, not much at all. Even in professional development right now, not much of a variance cumulatively. Instructional materials, you see the variance because last year we had to hold on to textbook money for a lot longer to make the purchases at the end of the year once the teachers had made, the decisions, the curricular decisions. This year, we've spent the money, more or less up front. In operations and maintenance, looking at still heating actually doing better, as you can see. Utilities is still the biggest variance, looking at a 54% variance. In electrical, I'm not seeing it with the telephone services. I've analyzed that. It's some in water. Because basically our utility costs are it's electric, our phones, water, and I'm not seeing it. I shared with Mr. Fonts. I did some random sampling of last year. Looked at a January period, an April period, and then a November period, and looked at. And what we saw was there's been an increase in usage at the elementary schools and middle school, and also an increase in price per kilowatt. The high school is an anomaly. Their usage has actually gone down, 2 of those periods, yet the costs have still increased. So again, it's just something we're just going to have to watch. And
this is one of the warmest fall winters we've experienced. Are you surprised we're not more favorable on heating?
Except oil is $1 million a gallon.
No. Because you still, that chill in the morning, we actually expend, I've been told, more when we're turning everything on, starting from that low point and then getting the building warm. So we're really not shutting, we have to get the cold out of the building, and so we're really not able to really shut the heat off or really tone it down till about 11, 12 o'clock. And again, that's if it's a reasonable temperature outside.
Mr. Chairman, Anna, am I correct that, didn't we move some money and trim some money in the heating accounts?
Oh, we had
because
trimmed
we were
it, yes,
over?
absolutely. From previous year, yeah.
We moved money.
Prior
and we were
available,
saving
if
money
you go to your
So you're saying we have a
budget.
different denominator?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, for there. But again, we'll just watch it. Grounds, I've seen a little bit more of a spending, and again, I think because I saw we had a lot of tree removal costs because of the storm. We purchased the bleachers, so that was an additional almost $8,000 expenditure to the grounds budget. And Spillane Field needed a little bit more in terms of work this year. So that's the reason why we've seen the increase in the grounds. Our insurance and special ed tuition, again, Mr. Lazan has encumbered, so that's why you see that huge variance, 42 to 19% from last year to this year. The money's encumbered, that's why it's basically that's the variance. In summary, we're really only looking at if you're just looking at the LEA total, it's a 1.97% difference, you go down to the non-net.
Before we leave the LEA,
Okay.
I would have never caught this if I wasn't trying to figure out what the total would have been if we took out of district out, because I knew of the unencumbered, so I knew that the 19.75 was a distortion. But what I discovered, much to my surprise, is that the LEA total percentage of 58.96 is simply wrong. The math is wrong. It's 65 and some percent. Excuse me?
Well, are you?
It's 65.90, not 58.96. So since I assume it's some formula that's built by this...
It's embedded in the...
How can that possibly be? How can you suddenly have it spit out the wrong number?
But that's embedded. It's coming right out of our accounting program.
And then that just makes me...
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Please?
Where did you come up with the 65 from
I
here?
don't get that.
I took the 16,733,401 and divided it by the 25,397,94.
All right, because this that says 6528, which is at the end, also has transportation in it.
I understand that.
Right,
And that's exactly. And that's exactly why you wouldn't expect it to be 58. So the 58 is simply a miscalculation, and I would like you to find out how that can happen.
You gotta love Vadar.
I'm not going to love Vadar. I already don't like
It's our
Vadar.
accounting system.
If it's not Vadar, it's not Vadar. But I want it, because every time I see an error like that, it makes me wonder where the other errors that I haven't caught are.
So what are you saying it is, Jeff?
What I'm saying is,
What
the way they're
percentage did you come up with?
65.9.
Instead of 58.96?
Right, not close.
No, it's not close.
And yet the other percentages are correct. I didn't test every one, but I tested a few.
Right.
And so I don't know how that happens.
Could it,
I can tell you.
Barry has an
wondering
answer.
If you...
could it be
if
the
spreadsheet
470,000?
added these up
dollars?
and divided to get the average, it has the subtotal averages involved, which would skew it, I believe.
Well, that would be a very bad methodology if that's how
I'm
it's
just-
doing it.
I don't know that, but that would be my assumption.
Anyway, please find your,
Yeah.
first of all, I had Rhonda confirm it, because I did it 3 times at home, and I thought, maybe Rhonda confirmed it, okay? So confirm it for yourself,
I
and
will.
then, more importantly, find out how that happened.
Yeah, how it does.
Because I lose confidence in the numbers when I find errors like that.
Like, for example, I have to make that $470,660 adjustment every time we look at the custodial line. Because
Okay,
at
but-
this point last year, we had not decreased the budget, so you're not really, until we get to that point, we're not really comparing the real figure. So, like, for example, let me go back to,
Well, I don't want to dwell on it, but
in
could
the
you go back to the
custodial
totals?
services.
I don't want to dwell on it. Go back to the totals. And what's,
So
in
that's
the
what I'm
end, what
wondering if
concerns me,
That could be part of it?
in the end, what concerns me is it's true that we have 65% remaining, and last year we had 65% remaining. I shouldn't,
60%.
I'm looking
This
at,
year-
6.54.
I'm looking at LEA and non-net.
And non-net,
Okay?
okay.
I shouldn't say what concerns me. What surprises me
So,
is that we actually are doing very well, despite the fact that the out-of-district is, way.
well, it's encumbered. I mean, we would have spent it, we're going to spend it.
I
We would have spent
understand.
it last year,
I understand, but that actually creates a distortion, because
For now.
we have so little,
for now, yeah.
for now, because we have so little left. So that actually means we have quite a bit more somewhere else in order to get back to be about the same for last year, which is, it's good news,
You
but
can see
it's
it up and
surprising.
down, depending upon which account.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
But I do want to, the revolving accounts, the only thing to bring to your attention is in our insurance account. We are experiencing vandalism and some difficulty at the Minot grounds and the Hammond School. Therefore, we're going to be installing surveillance cameras. We're going to be using the $10,000 that we received from that grant from the Be Safe that was in that insurance account because it would be a proper expenditure for those monies. It was targeted for that. And basically using that and then having to use two additional $1,000 of the Minot building maintenance budget and $1,000 of the Hammond to put up these cameras. We're having, we know groups are congregating. You see the telltale signs, in the morning when the custodian's coming in. Really concerned at the Hammond, someone actually bolted, just cut the chain and actually took the entire gate off, and the custodian found it somewhere down the road. And other just damage, tearing shingle off the building and tagging and all of that. So with the cameras, hopefully, and I've notified Officer Baptiste, our school resource officer, and once we do have that access to be able to visibly, catch that. He will definitely assist us in dealing with the situation. Okay. The other thing with Minot, the need for even additional cameras is because what we've seen is Principal Siemens has brought to my attention that individuals are not going through they're avoiding going through the security gates at the Brandy Hill apartments, which sort of border Minot. And on several occasions, she and her teachers have caught people just walking up through the Minot grounds and wanting to go cut through the back and the playground to cut over to Brandy Hill.
Exactly right, yep.
So we've got some concerns about that, and definitely we're going to be positioning cameras where we can catch that. I've approached the school resource officer as well as our fire department, and we are going to set up a meeting with Brandy Hill to discuss it. Someone said they may also have some cameras coming this way as well, so we'll have to get together and kind of do that. But I did want to let the committee know that that is something that's going on operationally that's not good.
About that slide?
Yes.
Yeah. 1 second. Go ahead.
So I wanted to go a little bit further on how much we're engaging law enforcement. I know that we're contacting our resource officer, and I know that that person is to be the liaison with the police department, but for incidents where, because I was at one of the PTAs, or I don't know, one of the principals' coffee, where we were talking about Minot specifically, and that there were kids that they caught that were using some of the roofs as skateboarding. Right, they're skateboarding, and but there has been instances where we have caught firsthand. Are we engaging law enforcement right away instead of waiting and then going through our resource officer and trying to figure out in cases where, I don't want to call it trespassing, but in a way they're misusing the property, are we trying to get law enforcement engaged a lot sooner than just trying to do it through in addition to the resource officer?
Yes, we have, because we request more drive-throughs. As soon as we see some sign of kids congregating, and they do, the police department will intentionally do more drive-throughs up and around the back to try to catch them. But the thing is, we're at a loss. I mean, usually they see the cruisers coming, and that's it. They scatter, they run, you can't get them. Because it borders the forest. They go right into the forest. I know the police have tried, previously. But now with the cameras, we will have that visibility. We have very strategically positioned them in order so that if they're going up on that roof or they're coming around that path, the other thing they're doing is the portables, the flat roof, they're climbing up a drain pipe and getting on top of that and skateboarding. This is not a new behavior that we've seen years ago at the Deacon's School. The entire E corridor, that very flat roof, we had the same problem. We had issues with skateboarders
just one more
climbing
question about
up and skateboarding.
Right. So I understand all the problems, but who's going to be responsible for monitoring the tapes? Is it going to be the resource officer? Well, or what plan is in?
It's web access. It's a live feed as well
as
a
who's going to be
stored.
monitoring it to? Somebody's not going to be sitting in front of a computer watching it all the time. So, what kind of schedule is going to be put in place to watch the tapes?
I don't think it's a matter of putting a schedule in place. It would be, custodian may come in the morning and see some signs of there's been activity at night. Now he'll have the capability to go to the tape and go back 5 or 6 hours or 12 hours, or it actually stores up to like 900 hours. In memory, it's web access, he can access it from home.
Yep.
Now, when the alarm goes off, let's say if the alarm were to go off and the head custodian gets called at home, they usually get that first phone call at home, they'd be able to go, if they had a computer, they'd be able to go onto a computer and immediately see what's going on around the school through those
Okay.
cameras.
Thank
So,
you, Anna.
yeah.
Thanks.
Again, we're trying what we can do.
Go ahead, Anna.
All right, Chairman Sweat mentioned this before. I wanted to give you some additional information about these 2 special needs vehicles that we have we have engine failures. W5 is a 2002 vehicle. It's got 265,000 miles on it. B46 is a 2001 vehicle. It has 201 miles on it. These 2 vehicles are for 2 separate mandated routes. One goes to Marshfield, one goes to Hingham. The estimate is anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000 to replace these vehicles.
The engine.
How are we going?
Replace the engine or replace the vehicle?
No, and
Oh,
just
the
the
engine.
engine, if we replace the engine.
We're not, okay, there it is. Right now, we're looking at these options. As Mr. Sweat said, we can throw good money at bad and replace the engines, and who knows how much more life we're going to get out of the vehicles, and there's going to be continued kind of wear and tear. Look at the age, look at the mileage. If we do nothing and we have to private contract out, that would be what it's going to cost us for 1/2 of the year to transport, to do those 2 routes through a private contractor. One is $220 a day. It's going to cost us $19,800. The other route would cost us $175 a day with a private contractor for $15,750. In speaking with Mr. Tatro, the option that I support, as well as he, is to replace those 2 their buses, they're huger, like half buses and buses, with 2 used 7D vans. You can pick them up and be equipped for about $10,000 a piece. So for $20,000.
70s?
Yeah, you can
No,
get
no,
it.
they're called 7D.
7D.
Vans.
The vans, 7D vans. Yeah. We basically, right now,
You're gonna
it's
get
very inefficient the way we're doing it.
Well,
We're transporting
We're not
3
far from
kids
that
on this
now.
huge vehicle. So, the vans would actually be a more cost-efficient way to also manage those types of routes as well. So, the statement I want to make is that I think we would be really fiscally irresponsible not to do the right thing and save the district money.
Terry?
yeah, we need more space.
At this point, I think I would like to ask if somebody in the committee would make a motion that because we have an emergency dealing with 2 special needs vehicles, that this board approve us using our revolving account, where we have the funds, to buy 2 used 7D vehicles because of this emergency.
We do another new business?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I agree with Cliff. I think it's appropriate to, because it's technically not part of the financial report.
Okay.
And if we have to act within 48 hours, or can it be an agenda item? That's what I want to ask.
Right.
It can be an agenda item.
Are you all set, Anna?
Yes, I am.
But it's the new year.
Ken, any questions?
Any other questions about it?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Then it's an emergency.
Cliff, questions?
No.
Rhonda?
What's that?
Just one question. Given the discussion that we're about to have under new business, apparently, I'm surprised to see the transportation revolver decline over the last couple of months. Can you tell me what caused that?
I mean, I ran a detailed sheet, but I think it would take a little bit more of a time analysis that I don't think it's got to lend for today.
My-
But I could definitely do that for you.
It says 48,711 as the previous balance, and it says 31,823 as the current balance. That's what I'm basing my question about decline.
Right, but not according to this piece of paper.
So what does it mean when it has a balance, previous balance of 48,711?
I'm basically doing the same, like
wasn't-
the approach we look at the LEA. We're just looking at
I'm just going by
where
what I'm looking at.
our
Where'd you get the
balances were
48,000?
at this period last year. So in the
So you're saying that
transportation,
48,000 was where it was a year ago?
a year ago.
Never mind, I
Yes.
withdraw my question.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a year ago, that's the previous balance a year ago today.
Fine, no problem.
That's it.
Okay. Does anybody have any new business they'd like to bring before the committee?
I just have one quick piece.
Yes.
I didn't want to step on your report as the chair, but unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the NSBA conference this year for the first time in a long time. I will be away on family business for that week. Got a member of the family that's very ill, and we're going to go down and see how she's doing. But anyways, with that being said, if you've never been to an NSBA conference and you've got it in Boston, I highly recommend that those that have never been to an NSBA conference avail themselves of the opportunity to go to this one. For all of the years that I've been in education, and all the conferences and all the workshops that I've gone to, this is by far one of the best. And their workshops are fantastic. Their guest speakers and public sessions are fantastic. And I think you'll be very, very impressed as to the scope and magnitude of this organization and how it functions. And we are an affiliate, and I strongly recommend to anyone that wants to go, but particularly to those that have never been to the NSBA conference, to make an attempt to go, because it's really worth the time.
Thank you. It's the first time I will be able to go.
Yeah, it's really worth it. And I hope that this one in Boston is as good as the ones that I've attended.
Anything else? Barry, do you want to bring this up?
Okay. I really truly believe in, under full disclosure, for the members who don't realize, there's an interpretation that's been done of the town charter, which says that you cannot buy a vehicle unless it goes to town meeting. But emergencies like this have to be dealt with. And I know that there's been a legal opinion asked for by the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee. But I think we need 2 vehicles. Otherwise, we're going to have to hire another company to transport these children, and we're going to be spending more money out of that budget, which is not fiscally responsible. So the money is in the revolver, and I really truly believe that we should use it. This is an emergency, and I don't think I can wait until January 11th to then tell our coordinator to start looking for it. And this may bring the issue to a head.
By coordinator, you meant manager.
Manager.
Yes. Comments, questions? Rhonda?
The one question that I had is that my understanding is that I didn't think that it had to go through town meeting in an emergency situation, but any purchases of capital over 5,000 need to be approved by the chief procurement officer, which would be the TA.
That's correct.
And so my question is, first of all, is that that's your interpretation also? And
Because
if it
it's
is,
a vehicle, I would say yes, in that the figure really is above, when we have an active town accountant in town hall, the normal was $25,000. Anything above that, the town accountant needed to sign off on, and the procurement officer. Both of these fall below that number, but I would bring it to the town administrator as the chief procurement officer.
I can't imagine him not approving this, given the fact it's gonna cost us 3 times the money to go another route.
I won't venture a guess on what will occur.
Go ahead. Rhonda, you all set?
Well, so then my question to this committee is, should our motion state that with approval of the chief procurement officer?
I think I need, as the chief operations person, the ability to run the transportation department.
Ken, any questions or comments?
No, Rhonda asked my question. I was just concerned as to how that ties in with the town administrator, and but I understand the situation. Dr. Rabinovich, we're talking about throwing good money after bad. Do we know the complete condition of these used vehicles?
Yeah, no, we haven't ventured.
We haven't looked at it yet.
No, but we know that there are available vans that, we're talking somewhere between 25,000 and 40,000 miles, that you can get for about $8,000. It costs you $800 to do the conversion, so to make them a 7D with the lights and the painting and the stop sign and so forth.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, to the superintendent. Then are we looking realistically to purchase these before the students return after the Christmas break? Because
depending
we're down
on how
2
fast
vehicles.
we can find them, and if they are appropriate, and then putting together a requisition and then bringing it up to the town administrator. I can't say that that will be done by, the Tuesday, January 2nd, but we would try to get it done as soon as possible.
So we're down 2 vehicles as of now.
Yes.
If it can't be done before then, are we looking at contracting out until it can be done?
We may have to contract out.
How are we doing it now?
Mr. Chair, there's a question?
Yes.
No, I didn't want to jump on Kenny, I'm sorry.
Please do.
No.
No. Cliff is right. Are you all set?
Yes.
Okay. Cliff?
How are we doing it now? These kids are in school.
I
know we got vacation coming up.
Mrs. Miranda may have an answer.
Go ahead, Anna.
We're currently using the 2 spares that we have, which means another vehicle, another van goes down, that's it. We're at nothing. Right now, we're using the 2, you've got to have, industry standard is you should have at least 4 to 5 spares in big buses, and in the 7Ds, at least 3 to 4. We have 2, and those are the ones that we're using now because these vehicles are out of use.
Cliff?
I'm ready for a motion. Want me to make it?
No, not quite yet. It does seem to me that there are 3 choices, and I think it probably would be a good idea to write this up, and give it to the TA. But I'll leave that to your discretion. But just for notes, one choice would be to spend $16,000 getting the short buses repaired, and that would be, it seemed to me, an example of, as I said earlier, good money after bad. The second choice is to spend 25% more than that and get vehicles that have a much greater life expectancy than we would have even after the repair. And then the third choice would be to spend close to $30,000, something like $30,000 or so.
Yeah, and that's for half a year.
And that's just for the remainder of the year.
Yep, for remainder of the year.
If we did that, which is irrational in a different way, that would generate a deficit in non-net and theoretically force us to go to town meeting
To pay the bill.
to pay the bill, which is obviously something we want to avoid at all costs. So I think the rational approach is to do exactly what you're recommending, but I think it would be good of us to vote to do it, but also to let the town administrator know that it's an emergency. We think if it was presented to rational people to approve in a non-emergency situation, they would do exactly what we're doing. So on that, I will take a motion to purchase the 270 vehicles.
All right. I'll move to allow the superintendent, within purchasing protocols of the town, to investigate the replacement of 2 special education vehicles that require new engines.
To investigate?
To procure.
Okay.
To purchase, right.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, so we, now that you changed the word to procure.
To allow the superintendent to procure, within the confines of all procurement protocols, the 2 special education vehicles that require new engines.
Rhonda, you have a...
The second part, the procurement.
Can we have a second for discussion, Mr.?
I thought we had one. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
did.
Oh, all right.
I did,
Go
but I
ahead.
just wanted to clarify that
All right,
you took investigate out.
right, okay.
For discussion, go ahead. I mean, now we can have discussion. Go ahead.
Could we add the second part, Cliff, that you said, procurement of the special needs buses under the procurement procedures?
Protocols.
Protocols of the town
Relative
charter.
Procurement protocols,
Of the town charter.
all right, of the town charter.
Mr. Chair, I object to that because of the interpretation of the town charter. I believe if we send it to 3 different attorneys, we'll get 3 different interpretations.
Would you feel more comfortable if we inserted the word emergency into there? Because that's really the basis under which you feel comfortable.
You know, we're getting into legalese around here. We just want them to conform to the protocols that have been established, whatever they may be. You know, we can legal it all to death, but we're not lawyers.
Agreed, and you're right that emergency is part of the protocols.
So,
yeah.
So, are you comfortable with
Yes.
the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I read what I have?
Please. And give Michelle the mic, please, Rhonda.
Dr. Sylvia moved to allow the superintendent within the purchasing protocols of the town to purchase 270 vehicles that require new engines, seconded by Mr. Fonz.
Are we all set?
I thought it was emergency procedures.
I suggested to make Dr. Rabinovich more comfortable, to add the word emergency. Cliff did not want that to be part of his motion. Dr.
change the
Rabinovich,
motion, vote it down.
I don't, Dr. Rabinovich doesn't
I'm
feel he needs it.
comfortable
Okay.
So it doesn't, there's no point. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
3, 1, 0. Okay, any further business?
I'm all set.
Okay, we are going into executive session. When we come out of executive session, we will just be voting to adjourn. I would like a vote to go into executive session. Ken?
For what? For
The
purpose of-
sorry, the purpose is an update on labor relations matters.
In executive session.
Yes, thank you. And executive, we have them? I didn't realize that. And executive session minutes. Thank you.
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Cliff?
Yes,
Rhonda?
Yes.
even though my back.
Yes. We are in executive session. Thank you, everybody.
We'll
You,
stand.
me, and Barry are like a mash unit.